Hi, this is Chimes Media and I'm James Williams. Okay, wanted to talk about a bit of philosophy, I suppose. It's based on my studies in neo-pantheism, and basically what I wanted to talk about is the difference between belief and reality, and that's a question that I'm sure lots of philosophers have grappled with for some time. I don't regard myself as a sort of high-ranking philosopher, so don't let me think that I'm preaching to you in any way. But anyway, it's just my understanding of things. Reality. What is reality? What is truth? What is reality? Well, I looked at things and thought, well, we live from moment to moment. We live in the present, we did live in the past, we may live in the future, but we live from moment to moment. So each moment in time, which we transition through smoothly. It's not a series of digital dots. We transition through that smoothly. But each moment of time creates what you might call a self-truth. So everything you experience personally is a self-truth. What you make sense of, how you make sense of it afterwards, that's subjective. But what happens to you from moment to moment is a self-truth, is a personal, objective truth, whatever may play out. Now, how do we know anything about what's going on in the world? How do we know that when you switch on the television that they're telling you the truth about anything? Well, the answer is you don't really know. Unless you're actually one of the actors involved in some incident that is televised, then you don't have any idea about really what's going on. You have to believe that what you're being told is the truth or not. And that's an interesting way to go about things. Now, the problem is how do we know? Because it's not so much an event. An event is a self-truth. It's an objective occasion that you personally experience. You might have a shared truth. You might, for example, be unfortunately involved in some car crash, and you might be one of the passengers, say, and everyone's experienced this same crash. But how each of you interpret it, assuming you survive, how you interpret it is your own subjective opinions placed upon it. You might be totally bewildered by some things, other things you might be able to explain. But whatever you do, we live, we move around this world, the world we live in, through a set of beliefs and assumptions. When you get out of bed, I assume you've got a bed, when you get up in the morning and you walk across the floor, you're assuming, you're believing that the floor will not cave in on you. You just assume it, you take it for granted. You know, in fact, if we had to check everything, you'd never get out of bed, would you? You'd just be all the time checking objective facts. So when it goes further afield than that, if we're looking at religion, let's take religion for example. Religion is often criticised as being, well, it's all a set of superstitious beliefs. Well, the concept of faith and reality, as I've just explained, is not so easy to distinguish from. Scientists, when they do conduct experiments, do so believing that some things will happen and others won't. And they set out to do experiments to try to establish truths about things. And yeah, they're important. You can't just ignore findings and stuff like that. But it's when it comes to the interpretation of those things that affects. So in neo-pantheism, is to try. What I try to do is looking at it is to try to be modest about things. When somebody asked me the other day, they said, "Well, what do you think of Putin?" At the time of making this, he's the sort of head of Russia, and I had to say, I don't know enough about him to have an opinion. I know what the newspapers say. I know how he's demonized and stuff like that. But I don't know what they're telling me. They might be telling me, as they probably do, and they often do, they tell you a particular point of view and an interpretation of things. They don't tell you everything. Well, they'd be all day telling you about it, wouldn't they? You get bored. But, you know, so I can't make an objective assessment of some things. I've got a better idea about some things than others, but, you know, you can't make assumptions based on the scanty information that you are given. And my criticism, and I think a few people's criticism, is of the media. The media these days, I mean, by and large, most of them, I don't know about all of them, I wouldn't like to go so far as saying all of them, the media these days spin you a load of yarns. I mean, they've always done that to some extent, but it's when they come over and try to project themselves as being truthful and honest, and they're the broker of reality, when in reality they're not. They're not. Okay, so now I did say about self-truth being a personalised, objective reality that occurs to you every moment of your existence, and of course some self-truths are more significant than others. So for most of the time you're going along and, you know, just getting by the day, if you like, but sometimes events occur which are significant self-truths. So where does this bring us? This brings us to question facts. Now, we shouldn't rush down the road of what you might call the postmodernists, of saying, well, everything's relative, therefore, what was it? The fact that a giraffe may be considered taller than an ant is due to culture. That's a load of nonsense. We have to accept that what realities are like punctuations. They are little lighthouses that tell us that I strongly believe is correct. So, for example, I often make reference to 2009 Berlin Zoo, when a lady thought that the polar bears in their enclosure could do with a cuddle, and so she climbed over into the enclosure with this in mind, that she could make friends with the polar bears. And it was only when they started taking bites out of her she realised, these are dangerous beasts. Now, what was missing there was that she had allowed her belief systems to override set truths and realities, and so she ignored the danger factor, the reality that the polar bears are top predators. And you see this many times, people doing stupid things, and you think, well, they're stupid things, but to them, if they're considered it and don't just do it recklessly without thinking, to them it's not so stupid. They've rationalised their behaviour. So in summary, what I'm saying is that most of our lives are run through belief systems of all kinds of things, not necessarily religious ones, but belief systems. We believe all kinds of things. We get by in the world by believing and having faith in what we're doing. And in actual fact, we have to take the little nuggets of reality when they occur, and we actually do. Actually, if you see there's been an incident, whatever the incident may be, as long as the incident isn't ongoing and threatening, people crowd round, because what are they doing? They're naturally looking for a little splinter of reality, something that gives them a bearing in life, and said, well, that is true. I've just seen this bit. I've seen that guy lying in a pool of blood or something, and I don't want to be like that. It's fascinating to me, horrific in many ways, but it's fascinating. And they look for nuggets of reality, which are like little lighthouses in their lives. It's quite natural. It's not a case of being gawkers and stuff like that. That is a natural instinct, and it's part of survival. So we live our lives in a world of beliefs, and we search out for the realities of things. And in young people, and not just young people, adventurous people, but tends to be young people very often will try out new things. They'll do adventurous things, even reckless things. But what they're doing is, in conceptual terms, is they're actually trying to find those little lighthouse realities that give them important self-truths and directions, so that they can go on and be more successful, more informed in other areas of their lives. Okay, well, that's enough for now. Until next time,